Well, Fenton and I used to live in New York in the East Village in the 80s, and so we were very much aware of Mapplethorpe. We never met him. He was a little older than we are. But we were very aware of him as a sort of brand, and we were aware of his work, and then obviously the controversy that happened after he died, we knew a lot about that. But it really kind of 25 years since the controversy, 27 years since his death, it felt like it might be time to sort of re-examine his work, his life, who he was, because truly, even though we knew a little bit about his work, we kind of knew the name more than we knew anything else.
Mm-hmm. Right? I sort of remember his name on banners, like there's things on lampposts, like street banners.
It was like McDonald's, Mapplethorpe, it was a brand.
We didn't really know the work that well.
We knew there was like naughty work.
Yeah.
Right?
Naughty work. Yeah. Yes.
And we knew of the flowers. I mean, we knew the work, but superficially.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the beginning of our process really was to actually look at the work. I mean, he died at the age of 42, yet he produced so much work. It's unbelievable how much work he produced in such a short period of time. In the film, we almost have 500 photographs in the film. So really, one of the beginning, the sort of beginning of our process was really to start to look at the work, to look at the pictures.
Well, we've been asked back a few times, what is your favorite? And it is difficult to pick one out of so many, I mean, I personally like the Gloria Turner-Taxis portrait that he took near the end of his life, and she's just looking, she was a very extravagant, crazy person at the time, but the portrait he did of her is her hair is back, and she's just wearing a string of pearls and looking down. It's very minimalist, but radiant portrait, and it's just a fantastic picture. But I'm not sure if really there's one picture really that's a favorite, so much as the idea that our favorite thing about him was that really his life, he said this himself, he said his life was the work of art. And all the pictures he took were sort of documenting his life. And so I suppose the favorite work of art out of all of his works would be himself, for me.
I understand that.
Yeah, and what's your favorite one?
I could never answer that question because there are too many. So I can't.
The collages.
I like the early work. He did all these collages using old porno and spray paint, and I just love those. They seem so vibrant and alive and interesting and different, and I wasn't aware of any of them. I also came to like a lot of the color flower portraits, which were also images. Like, I was aware of the flowers, but I didn't look at them in the way that I did making this film. And then also, shortly after we started to work on this film, we discovered that LACMA and the Getty, these two incredible art institutions in Los Angeles, well, in the world really, we're doing a joint retrospective, and that retrospective is now up in Los Angeles, and at the LACMA retrospective, one of the walls is just all the color flower photographs, and it's really kind of beautifully curated. Getting access is always kind of difficult. You tap dance and you but it wasn't as difficult as it normally is, because we first had to get access and permission from the Mapplethorpe Foundation and then Getty and LACMA, and I think everybody understood that we wanted to make a serious film and that we've made great films in the past. And that in many ways Mapplethorpe is similar to a lot of our other subjects from the past, in that he's someone who has been sort of overexposed and under-revealed. So I think the various institutions kind of felt comfortable with our approach and sort of gave us a green light pretty quickly.
Yeah, And then it was really just a question of getting it done in time, because we knew we had to have the film done by the time those exhibitions opened. You know, because there'd be this sort of tsunami of interest in Mapplethorpe, and we didn't dare miss that, right? We wanted to ride the wave.
But it was really surprising that the Mapplethorpe Foundation, like, they, not only did they give us permission, but they had no editorial control. So it was a huge leap of faith for them.
Yeah.
And I think they like the film. At least they've suggested they do to us. But they really, you know, I mean, if we were bad filmmakers or if we had some ulterior motive, it might not have been good for them, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were very open. They were very open. When they like, I mean, there's been a number of books about Mapplethorpe, and there's a great biography by Patricia Morrisroe. But in terms of films, there isn't that much. I think people look at the work and think it's all about the sex pictures or his lifestyle, and really, I think what the film reveals is that he saw himself as this work of art and lived his life as a work of art in progress. And I think that that is a radically different look at Mapplethorpe, because critics write about Mapplethorpe and they're always looking at the pictures and talking about the pictures and evaluating them. And yet really, it was his life that was the work of art, and the pictures were documenting that.
And also, you know, just to add to that, I mean, I also think that people just, it's not that we made the film to change people's point of view, because we didn't even have a point of view when we went into making the film. But I think people, before they see the film, don't even know who Mapplethorpe is. And I do think you get to know him through this film. So I think that's, the film humanizes him just by sort of letting him, because he talks more in the film than anybody else. Yeah. So hearing from him, he helps tell the story about him. And up until this point, I mean, we obviously have interviewed a number of other people who are featured in the film, but like, he's the main narrator. So getting to hear from Mapplethorpe and having him explain who he is and why he does what he does and what his work is about is, I don't think that's really happened to this point. I mean, it has, and there have been other people who've made docs and have done great stuff with Mapplethorpe, but I think in totality, I think it's hopefully will help people to get to know him better.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think the controversy that he caused meant that a lot of people would have a lot to say about him. But what this film, what we discovered was he had quite a lot to say about himself. And he was very articulate and very clear and straightforward and straight up about what he was doing and why he was doing it.
I mean, early on in the process, we discovered that he did lots of interviews with lots of journalists, and he liked talking about his work, and he understood the importance of press and media coverage. He understood that he needed to sort of build a profile. And as we talked to various journalists, we would just ask them, you know, do you have tapes? And they'd be like, yeah, I think I do, somewhere in the attic, or I think I do. So we would just pester people about, like, can we send someone over to look for them, or we'll digitize them. And so it was an ongoing process. The more people we talked to, the more tapes we discovered, the more pieces of the puzzle we collected.
So it was sort of a gradual process, really, wasn't it? It was.
That was a more efficient
and then,
wasn't
but
it?
no. And then I guess one of the great discoveries, there were two great discoveries in terms of archive, I think. One was early on, where we found this local news piece that they'd gone to the Chelsea Hotel to do a piece on the art scene at the Chelsea Hotel, And we had this interview with Sandy Daly talking about this news piece. We never thought in a million years we'd be able to find it. She had never seen it since it happened. I mean, it was a local news piece in 1972. I mean, what are the odds that it still exists? And we found it, and there was Mapplethorpe, the young Mapplethorpe, hanging up his early sculptures on the wall. So that was great. And then the other great thing, I think, was the artist Peter Klaushaus, the young artist then, in the 80s, going to Robert's loft with his friend who had a video camera and videotaping as Robert took his portrait. And those two pieces, one at the beginning of his career, one at the end, really helped bring him to life, you know.
I mean, one piece of advice that we've had to follow all the time is never take no for an answer. I mean, people have never said yes to anything. Well, people rarely say yes to things that we want to do for our entire careers. So we always say at World of Wonder that no is the beginning of yes. And so, so when people are starting out, it's important to not take no for an answer. And even if people aren't starting out, because like I said, for us, it's never really changed. So that it's important not to personalize, you know, no or rejection, because it's going to happen forever.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, the other thing is that, especially with documentaries, is I think what inspired Randy and I at the beginning was the sort of do-it-yourself aesthetic, the punk aesthetic, really. I personally didn't like punk music, but the idea of just doing something, I've always loved that. And now with, you know, you can make it on your iPhone, and you can distribute it on YouTube. So that isn't problem solved by any means, because with everybody doing that, how do you get attention? But in a way it circles back to Mapplethorpe, because it's one thing to create the work, which I think you can just do now and should do. And then the other thing is you've got to get it noticed. And that's as legitimate and valid a part of being an artist as creating the beautiful thing in the first place. You're an artist, so you have a responsibility to engage, woo, win, entertain your audience. And, but it's all more exciting than it ever was. And I do think, ultimately, I think non-fiction is the future, in a way that fiction is just looks sort of sometimes out of date, you know. And I love scripted, but like even House of Cards, which is my favorite scripted series, it feels like a documentary. You know, it's so much about themes and issues that are going on right now. So I look at everything through the lens of scripted, and I'd recommend anyone to do exactly the same.
So if I could just summarize,
Oh, yeah.
I think there's 4 points that we're making.
Right.
1 is don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
2 is just do it.
Yes.
3 is make noise about it.
Yes.
And 4 is
Do.
nonfiction is the new fiction.
Yes.
Right?
There you go. Brilliant.
Okay. Because that's...
Oh, and I guess find a partner who can summarize your rambling statements.
Oh.